Is the Siddha tradition interwoven within all spiritual traditions seen today, or does it remain the essence of only a few, or even none?
Could you say it in simpler words? So is it like interwoven with all the traditions?
Yeah, so is the Siddha tradition interwoven within all traditions, or
But all traditions, like what? Give an example, please.
like you could say religions and then tradition, like sects within that,
Yeah.
spiritual traditions,
Yes.
lineages.
So, I mean, even though we use the word tradition, we say Siddha tradition, it's beyond any tradition. It's maybe even nowadays, some people who use this word, or they say that I represent Siddha tradition or Siddha teaching, and then they perform rituals and do all kinds of external spiritual actions, and people start thinking that Siddha knowledge is of that ritualistic nature, yet it is not. And yes, I must say that, as I said in one of my other videos, that Siddha consciousness is the pure essence of our collective consciousness, of the original soul that streamed through this cycle. And so definitely Siddha being is beyond any traditions, is beyond any concepts or philosophies. It's pure natural spirituality. It's pure awareness. Yet it also holds the heritage of the past cycles and all the knowledge that has been accumulated throughout various cycles and experiences of the collective. Again, if this consciousness is unmanifested, just remains in its pure form, in a subtle way, it's beyond any traditions, it doesn't have anything to do with our mundane reality. But once this consciousness is manifest, say, and operates through a body, then every body has a capacity to act. So the body has a function. It acts, operates. Now, the impulse for the action does not come from the body itself. It comes from consciousness that sits in this body and navigates this body, governs this body through life. Now, consciousness that sits in the body is the same consciousness as manifests situations. How? Because first of all, when certain things happen, it is our attention, it's our personal consciousness through attention notices that situation or attracts to something. And so through this apparatus, we have an illusion that something is operating beyond our awareness, because we only notice the part where our attention is attracted, or we pay attention to something, but we're not aware of how certain circumstances were shaped or how certain people came into picture. It remains unconscious for us. But the fact is that one and the same consciousness operates through everyone. But we retain a certain individual seed. Now, pure consciousness, Siddha consciousness, and operating through the body, refines the body, and certain actions may appear as the same average mundane actions. So words can be used by the body to express consciousness. So now, once something is in the body, it's distorted to a certain level, right? To a certain degree. So the same goes with pure consciousness. It's still a part of our collective, but through the down cycle, let's say, it distorts. So it gives originally, it's just a pure being. Natural spirituality doesn't even need to be called spirituality, it's just a being. But once there is dispersion, once there is division of life into different aspects, division of our existence into different roles and functions. So through this dispersion, we see the dispersion of pure being. We start having spirituality, politics, emotional life, and it seems like all of these are separate from our being, but this is still a part of our being. It's just that we focus on every limited aspect. So Siddha presence is still there as the essence of our existence beyond this dispersion, beyond these divisions. It's a pure being. It can only be perceived in silence. Once you stop talking, you perceive it. You can. If you can not only stop talking, but your mind stop thinking as well. The majority of people cannot stop thinking. They're too dispersed. Now, if you're able to perceive your being beyond thoughts, beyond emotions, that is so-called Siddha being. That is the essence. No religion can object that. No spiritual school can object that. It's clear. That's why it's called perfect. Because it's pure, it's clear. There's nothing to add, subtract from it. It's wholesome. So it doesn't even need to be anything. It doesn't need to be tradition. People say it's purity. People say it's divinity. People say it's love. People say it's God. People say it's perfection. Despite whatever people say, it is untouched. It is not tarnished by anything. It's beyond anyone's saying. But once this intelligence descends in the human body, it becomes wisdom. It becomes knowledge that is transmitted and spoken. It becomes knowledge that is applied practically when you deal with nature, with creation, on a mundane level, on a human level. So it becomes wisdom, practical intelligence, right? So whatever you touch, there's a seed of purity there. Because without that purity, this world is irrelevant, it can't operate. But yet this purity is not noticed because it's so small, it's like a little particle, beyond even that. But it's a drop. But the drop rules the world. The world is so dispersed into gross elements, big elements. But these elements have no capacity to rule the world. They don't spin the world. Even though an elephant is huge, a building is huge, it doesn't spin the world. It's something so minute as a quantum, or beyond that, beyond even our awareness, what that is. Let's call it perfect particle. That spins the world. And that's what we see in the quantum world. Something so small is so potent. And something so big, it looks big, appears to be frightening sometimes, but there's no value in that sense. It just doesn't do anything because its form looks big, but it is composed of smaller elements. So in the quantum world, it's the reversed. the smallest is the most potent. And the same goes with in the spiritual world. Because something that is very, very tiny and small in the physical reality could be very big in the spiritual sense. You know, virus, bacteria is so tiny, but look how much damage they can do to our form, which is much bigger. Because in the spiritual sense, virus is a very, very potent power on a subtle level. But when you manifest it in the physical level, it is a very tiny particle, harmful, but very tiny. So on a spiritual level, it can be huge, a huge demon, but in the physical form, such a tiny little nothing. So this is how it goes. Now, Siddha particle is much, much small. So small that it can't be even perceived on a physical level, as much as only like a invisible emanation, some sort of radiation, the source of which can't be located. It seems like. So it's a very, very refined collective cluster of consciousness, which is in this day and age not actively operating. I mean, it is operating, but it is not visible, it is not easily perceived through this current circumstances and dimension we're living in, because it's the age of degradation where lower forms of consciousness predominate, and so that purity cannot even be registered by the collective majority. So that's Siddha consciousness in a nutshell.